listening to the Dynamic Women podcast. Each week, you'll be inspired by our global community of women. They'll share with you tools and stories to help you be dynamic in every area of life. Here's your host, award-winning coach, and the CEO and founder of Dynamic Women, Diane Rolston.
So hello, everyone, and welcome. I have the absolute pleasure of bringing you today Jill Lublin. She is such a talented woman, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her first. So Jill is an international speaker on the topics of radical influence, publicity, networking, kindness, and referrals. She is the author of 4 best-selling books, including Get Noticed, Get Referrals with McGraw-Hill, and co-author of Guerrilla, Publicity, and Networking Magic. And her latest book, Profit of Kindness, went to #1 in 4 categories. Jill is a master strategist on how to position your business for more profitability and visibility in the marketplace. She is a CEO of strategic consulting firm and has over 25 years experience working with over 100,000 people, plus national and international media. So Jill teaches publicity crash courses as both live events and live webinars, and consults and speaks all over the world. And she also helps authors to create book deals with major publishers and agents, as well as obtain foreign right deals. Wow, amazing. Amazing, Jill. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, it's so great to have you here. Jill and I, we have connected through networking, marketing, or masterminds in Vegas, LA, and such. And I've also seen you speak in kind of where I live here in Vancouver as well, which is awesome.
That's right. That's right. And it's amazing. People are well, they're grateful to have you too, I'm sure. So I'm grateful to be here.
Well, thank you. So why don't you get us started? Tell us, Jill, you're a 24-year veteran in PR, but a lot of people are not really sure about what public relations really is. Can you give us an idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the first thing you need to know about public relations is it happens from the minute you walk out your door. So, people have this big vision, what's PR? Oh my gosh, I'm in the New York Times, or I'm on Good Morning America, or, some major show wherever you are. And guess what? It is really about your networking. It's about your visibility building. It's about trust building. It draws prospects and clients to you. It gets your reputation out there. So it is everything you do is PR. So you might as well embrace it and know how powerful it is and actually use it to your advantage.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing with that is it's actually freeing to hear that it's that, because if we think of it just in our connection with the media, that might feel a bit daunting, especially to people who are kind of starting out.
Well, and just to say, it's all about every piece of who you are. And I think it's freeing to know that you don't have to be afraid of it, because at one level you're just doing it anyway. So let's make your message consistent and focused. That's what's key.
True. Yeah, nice. And I know you feel strongly about the message. So what is it? And how do you create this message?
Well, the good news is we're going to actually talk about that message in the training we're about to do. So let's hold that for just a moment. I'm actually going to tell them how to do it. That's the good news.
Good. And so for those of you listening right now, if you are lucky enough to be part of the Dynamic Women Global Club and be part of that training, then you'll get to hear all about Guerrilla Publicity. And for those of you who are listening to this interview on the podcast, then you're going to have to slip over to the Global Club to catch a replay of that. So why don't we move on then? What is an expert? Who is an expert? What is an expert?
Yeah, thank you. An expert is you. It's everyone listening to this podcast and the training, because here's the truth. You're all experts. The question is in what? We want to define it, we want to create it, and we want to get it so that other people understand what you're an expert in, and frankly, why they should care. And then, of course, move them to do business with you.
Now, what if someone doesn't know what they're an expert in?
Well, that's where people like me come in. I mean, I'm an expert in helping people be experts, finding their message, finding their PR niche, taking their expertise to grander and bigger ways to get themselves out there so you can attract the money, the prospects you want, the clients you want, and make a lasting impact and leave a legacy. That's all related to message. So, and to being an expert. And the truth, Diane, too, is that we sometimes shift the expertise depending on what's happening in the news so that you can be making news and creating more visibility. That's exciting too.
Yeah. And sometimes as an expert, or if you have a message, or if you've positioned yourself in a good way, according to what's happening in the news, people will reach out to you to have you speak for the radio or news or whatever. And so what would you say is your secret sauce formula for creating a great media script?
Oh, well, we're going to also do that in the training,
Are
you
we?
lucky people. We
Okay.
are. We're going to do some things in the training, which are really wonderful. But bottom line, and for those coming back, you will go a little bit deeper on this, but it's about creating a problem solution formula. So meaning you focus on the problem out there, and then you give people real solutions. That's a simple answer to it. We'll do a little more in the training.
Okay. And are you going to talk in the training, or can we talk now about how someone finds out the problem?
Well, I'll address that now. That's great.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd say to all of you is reflect for a moment. What is the news that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a particular month that works to have your news in? Like, for instance, I'm working with a woman who was, frankly, a victim of domestic assault and abuse. And,
Wow.
turns out there's a particular month for that. Other people I've dealt with, maybe with breast cancer, there's a particular month for that. October, of course. So you want to take a look at, is there a month that is in honor of or celebration of something? Like, for instance, a parenting coach I worked with, she helps, people fall out of love and then take care of their children well. And so we did a story about how to fall out of love for Valentine's Day. Now, so sometimes you hook your story onto an existing holiday because of something you do that is relevant. In her case, because we did that, we were able to get her 7 podcasts, 2 TV shows, a magazine article. It was just incredible.
Wow.
Because we took shall we call it an anti-stand, right?
Yeah,
So
it is.
sometimes being a little controversial is beautiful too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because how exciting to be able to speak to the other demographic in that time, in that season. How refreshing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's different, which is nice. So sometimes you want to be a little anti versus positive. I tend to like to make positive news, but sometimes we'll have to come in another way. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I could hear that being very positive for your clients, potential clients, to be like, finally, someone talking about something different at this time of year.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it would catch people's eye. Now, is this the ooh-ah factor, or is that something completely different? I've heard you mention that before.
Yes, it can relate to the ooh-ah factor. And that can also be something that's just really interesting. Like one of my clients, she's a nonprofit and she's a nurse and she leads medical missions to Uganda. Her ooh-ah factor, she could treat 5,000 patients in 3 days. I mean, that's with her team, of course.
Yeah. Wow.
But to me, that was like mind-blowing, right? And the funny thing about her that I kept correcting, shall we say, is she would constantly forget to tell people she was a nurse, a neuroscience nurse, I might add.
Wow.
Obviously educated, focused, but somehow she would forget that. Part of our work together was to put that into her message so that it was part of her ooh-ah factor. Because I think a lot of you forget the most interesting part of your story. So that's a piece that's important.
Yeah, true. So it sounds like you're really, the key thing is finding out how to use like each piece of who you are and bring that in. So how do you really use like everything you've got?
Well, that's the part where I listen to my client, I hear their story. I have a talent for finding that message that's deep, that's powerful, that's impactful. It may shift occasionally. You'll see, for instance, when The Profit of Kindness came out, my message shifted from, for example, when Guerrilla Publicity came out. It's a different message. It reaches a different audience, and it's important to distinguish. So I like to look at this as an overall project of what's the person's goals. Do they want to increase their practice? Do they want more clients? Of course, everybody usually does, right? Yeah, more prospects, which Publicity consistently does and guarantees. And it's important to create that recognition in the marketplace too, to create I like to call it the "I've heard of you somewhere" syndrome. And that's when you do things like the ooh, ah factor, it brings people back to you going, I've heard of you somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Like, I love how you coined that, because I'll show up at events and people are like, I've seen you somewhere, or I've heard of you somewhere. What do you think makes that happen?
Because what's happening is you're gaining traction, and what's happening is that people have seen your name, you become more visible, you create that constancy of the name recognition. And one thing I say is always a guarantee for success is to be consistent and persistent. So here's the deal. If you are consistently showing up, doing your PR, creating a strong visibility building campaign, which is really PR, right? Which includes networking, being interviewed, which includes getting your name in media, and small and big, it all counts, it all matters. It could be your Chamber of Commerce newsletter. That's a beautiful thing. It could be the way you can, an article that you write for, for a column somewhere, or being featured on a blog, whatever it is. The point is you want your name consistently out there, and that creates the "I've heard of you somewhere." And the truth is, people will often not remember where. The good news is we don't care. It's all, we just want them to recognize us, to know who we are, to say, I've heard of you somewhere.
So you're mentioning blogs and chambers and being interviewed and TV and radio and newspapers and all this. That is what I would maybe say is kind of the traditional way of getting yourself out there in publicity. And I feel like there's been such a swing out to, well, I have so many followers on Instagram, and I am on Facebook, and I have so many likes. But this style of true publicity, not just promoting yourself online, true publicity, tell us what's the ROI of that?
Well, and let me just say, being online and having Instagram followers and all of your platforms is part of your publicity campaign. So, for instance, I had a gentleman in Australia who changed his message to a piece that I helped him with in my publicity course. And guess what? He got 225 likes that day, which translated to 3 clients. That's ROI. One of my clients used his ooh, ah factor, being Asian American, not speaking a word of Chinese. We translated his articles into Chinese, and one article got him a $7,000 consulting engagement. That's good ROI, right?
Yeah.
One of my clients was selling an accessory, a fun $25 accessory. She got in one blog. Her product was $25. She sold 600 of them that day from the blog post.
Woo!
That's $15,000. That's good ROI.
Yeah. So, and just for anyone who's listening, I didn't say what ROI is, return on investment. So the idea of getting into one blog and making 15 grand in sales, that's awesome. That's really, really good. And so you said that the way to do that is to, like with the gentleman, it was translating into a new market.
Yes.
With her, it was just getting on a blog.
Yes.
What are some other ways some of your clients have been able to expand and have a really good return on investment?
Yeah, well, a financial planner I worked with, for example, with all kinds of compliance issues, which they have at times, we were able to use his story about his wife's breast cancer journey. And then what's interesting is by using that, we got him featured in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, talking about what can a man do? What can a partner do? That was interesting. And his business increased by 35%. A woman who sold olive oil from France. I had her do a whole story around her daughter it's a pretty serious story about being an alcoholic and her recovery journey. But she was like 16 when the mother had to kick her out of the house. Well, that was the story that fueled her olive oil business, because she used her personal story to drive the business to her website. And so this is what I really want to leave people with. It's really about not getting too attached to what you think your story is, but let's do what works. Let's do what moves people, what's authentic for you and moves people to action, and creates your attraction process, your prospecting process, and clients for you, which Publicity consistently does. I see it every single time with every single client that their percentage on their website visits goes up, all their platforms across social media increase in numbers and influence, which is positive impact and ROI, by the way, because that also translates. I've seen sales consistently, and consulting. Like a woman I work with, she's a consultant in Minnesota, and she did one thing I taught her from the Publicity course very specifically, and she got featured in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. One sentence, all right, one sentence. She walks into her consulting engagement, and the gentleman looks at her and says, I Googled you. And by the way, they will. They'll Google you. He says, I saw that you were in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and I'd love to offer you the position because, well, I figure if you're good enough to be featured in the media, you must be good. Now, I will tell you, later she found out the other two candidates, one was less than she was, meaning the offer would have been less to that person. They were less experienced. And the other person was actually more experienced than her. She was a little bit in the middle. Why'd she get chosen? Because of the PR. That's what pushed her over the edge and got his attention and had him say yes to her. Publicity is the key.
Yeah. So I'm going to just check in with those who are listening live with us right now. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat room, because we're going to be able to have a moment to ask those. And in the meantime, but we're going to wrap up with you sharing with us a couple of resources for us to use for PR. But before we get there, and I'm not seeing any questions come through, so what I'd love to hear about is, I've heard how you've shared with a lot of the stories of you having success with a lot of your clients, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, okay, how do I get in on some of that? So I'm sure you have a great offer. I always ask my guests to come with a great offer, an irresistible offer of how people can work with you, to kind of get a taste of working with you. So what does that look like?
Well, thank you. Besides my wonderful Publicity course, which feel free to ask me about, I actually teach a virtual marketing mastermind. And what's wonderful about this is it's Zoom, just like this. You have the opportunity to have a very specific question answered and get all my wisdom inside of an intimate setting and on Zoom. So it's really easy. It's easy and fabulously convenient. And I will answer your pressing PR questions and get rid of that, I don't know how to do, or what should I do about, and get you going and moving very quickly so that your PR escalates and rapidly gives you return fast. So the Virtual Marketing Mastermind is normally $247. And what I'm going to do for your wonderful people is make it $127. So pretty much half for my 24 years of experience on your PR issues.
Yeah. So some of the things, even just from what we've talked about, could be how do I use what's happening over the course of the year? Where do I put myself? Which stories do I have that could help? Is this a good story to use? How would I spin this marketing piece? to be more relevant? How should I push this in order to offer it? So there's lots that people can bring to you. That's amazing. So I will be putting in the link. So for those of you listening on the podcast, it'll be in the show notes. You'll be able to grab the link from there. And for any of you that are live, I will drop it into the chat room for you.
And can we also just say it verbally? Would that be okay with you too?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate always the show notes too. But go to jilllublin.com/mastermind and type in the promo code for the half off, dynamic, all capital letters. Okay, jilllublin.com/mastermind, all capital letters with the promo code dynamic.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Dynamic, because we are dynamic.
You are dynamic.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. We've got one question, and then we're going to end off with a couple of resources that people can use for PR. So the question from Paula is, for a new business venture, is there one social media platform that you would recommend to start with?
Well, honestly, it depends a little bit what your business is. All my business people must be in LinkedIn. If you're a coach, a consultant, in any arena related to business, LinkedIn is definitely your way to go. Facebook is always, I think, still fabulous. And depending on age or influence or what you're selling or promoting, Instagram is key. So I would tell you, pick between those three as your first one, or as my coach says, your drug of choice in a good way. And, and the other truth is you probably got to work multiple platforms. But, working one well will do you a great service.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So what are a couple of resources that people can use for PR? Actually, there'll be three. One is you, and then the other two.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the other two that I think would be really great is called prwebdirect.com. That's a really good resource for for sending out press releases, prwebdirect.com, and then helpareporter.com. It's actually helpareporterout.com. And Mary Beth, you might write in the Zoom. The actual website would be fabulous.
Is that Harrow?
Exactly. Yes.
Help a reporter out. Yes. Harrow.
Yes.
And feel free also, Mary Beth, to pop in the link to for those listening live. Awesome. Well, two great resources there, lots of great tips and explanation for people to kind of navigate through the publicity world. Thank you so much, Jill, for your expertise here today. And for anyone who is listening later on and you would like to connect, please check the show notes. And if you would like to reach out to me for a possible another amazing guest that you have in mind or a question that you would like answered, please email me, Diane@DianeRolston.com. Thank you very much, Jill. And I encourage everyone listening to check out Jill's offering. That is an amazing, amazing opportunity to get insight from such an expert in publicity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dynamic Women, for joining us today. Please hop on over to iTunes to subscribe and leave us a review. Who do you know who needs to hear our message? We'd love it if you'd share our channel with your friends and family. If you're ready to be more dynamic, have more balance and more success, head over to www.dynamicwomenclub.com/free gift for your Key to Success book. Stay dynamic.